After 220 years, brothers find Oak Island treasure. Treasure hunters have been searching for the treasures that are rumored to be hidden on the mysterious Oak Island for the past 220 years. Marty and Rick Lagina, two brothers, have devoted a significant amount of their lives to the pursuit of this goal. A documentary program on the topic, dubbed The Curse of Oak Island, was produced by the television network A&E to chronicle the group's efforts and the groundbreaking discoveries they made. Let's do a deep dive into their quest and figure out how they found the hidden riches, shall we? Artifacts. Because of the brothers' unhealthy preoccupation with the island, they were the ones who footed the bill for the excavations that were conducted to locate the buried treasure. To their good fortune, the television show about the island in which they participated also piqued the interest of other investors, and as a result, they were able to get more funds for their treasure quest. The show would go on for a total of 2 seasons before the Laginas would make a noteworthy find of any kind. In contrast, the brothers made a significant discovery during the 3rd season of the show. During the process of emptying a massive hole, the 2 individuals discovered a few puzzling objects, one of which was a Roman ceremonial sword that had been remarkably preserved. This discovery lends credence to the theory that Romans arrived in North America many centuries before Christopher Columbus. Additionally, Portuguese carvings and other artifacts that are thought to have belonged to the Aztecs were discovered. Map to the treasure. At the end of the 3rd season, the brothers had the feeling that they were heading in the correct direction. At the beginning of the 4th season, they set out to determine the provenance of one of the most intriguing artifacts they'd discovered to that point, a handcrafted duplicate of what appeared to be an antique map of France. They were able to determine its age as far back as 1647 with the assistance of Zena Halpern, a historian and an expert in the field of ancient seafaring. Halpern helped them to do this. On the map, the phrases hatch, anchor, and valve were written, which gave the impression, so to speak, that the location of the buried treasure was somewhere in Africa. Manuscripts. An item that appeared to be a page from a book was another thing that the treasure hunting team discovered in the money hole that was considered to be of tremendous significance once it was discovered there. It resembled something that might be used to bind paper together, such as a bookbinder. Because of this, the brothers began to think that there might be additional books lying about, just waiting to be found, and that each one might hold a different secret or function as a component of a larger puzzle. If that really is parchment, and we've had several people render the opinion that it is, Rick Lagina said, it can only go that there's some sort of manuscript or document at great depths in the money pit. Previous letter. In addition to the old book binding that was discovered, another artifact of historical significance was uncovered, a parchment that appeared to have been made from the skin of some kind of animal. It's been hypothesized by some that the artifact is connected to a discussion that took place between Frederick Blair and William Chappell, the latter of whom participated in an investigation that took place on the island in the 1930s. Whatever the case may be, the parchment manufactured from animal skin can be dated as far back as the 15th century. At that time, the privilege of writing and receiving letters was reserved for monarchs and other non-commoners. How everything started. Near the close of the 18th century, a discovery was made that provided the very first hint that riches may have been buried somewhere underneath Oak Isle. A little boy by the name of Daniel McGinnis discovered what appeared to be scars on an oak tree that was not natural. For this, he was able to conclude that the problem was caused by a rope that was involved in some sort of pulley system that was used to convey objects up and down a shaft. Following the discovery of a depression of 5 meters beneath the earth, he concluded that something must have been buried there. After he shared this information with 2 of his close friends, the 3 of them launched an excavation that lasted over 10 years, but was ultimately fruitless. Early obsession. Rick Lagina, then 11 years old, had no idea that in 1965, all it would take for his life to be turned upside down would be for him to flip through a copy of Reader's Digest magazine. The piece that resonated with him was one that told the story of a treasure rumored to be hidden on a remote island in the wilderness of Canada. When their father showed them an article about Oak Island that had been in the Wall Street Journal, Both he and his brother Marty became even more captivated by the topic. Tablet itself. Several years would pass before the Onslow Company would make an effort to finish what the three friends had begun. They discovered a tablet, the writing on which wasn't deciphered for almost a century after it was unearthed. Even though it's impossible to say that their attempts were effective, someone who seems to be an expert stated that some of the writing means 40 feet below. 2 million pounds lie buried, which some people have interpreted to suggest that a treasure does lie beneath the surface. Far-fetched hypotheses. Some of the most outlandish hypotheses have been developed about Oak Island as the testing field. Some believe that Marie Antoinette was the owner of the wealth in question. Some people think that Shakespeare and Francis Bacon might be connected to some of the manuscripts that were discovered. Even though none of these hypotheses have been verified, a great number of people are nonetheless able to be intrigued by a number of these theories. Whatever the case may be, this is the case. Investment opportunity. At the beginning of the 21st century, an excavation site near Oak Island yielded the discovery of a few pieces of gold. The Truro firm, which was responsible for conducting the digs, ran into difficulties when water from the ocean began to fill the hole in which they believed the wealth to be concealed. Due to the enormous amount of effort that was put into maintaining the excavation, they eventually ran out of financing and were forced to cease. This region came to be known as the Money Pit, and the Oak Island Association was to focus most of its efforts on draining the water that occurred in this area. But their efforts were fruitless, and during one of those failed attempts, Oak Island took its very first life. Roosevelt and Oak Island. The 20th century saw a significant increase in the number of expeditions to the island, all of which, unfortunately, came at the same disappointing conclusion. There are rumors that former President Theodore Roosevelt, who had a lifetime fixation on the island, was a member of one of those expedition groups. It's only possible to guess as to why Roosevelt abandoned seeking treasure at Oak Island. Still, it's most likely that, just like all the excavation teams that came before him, his team was unsuccessful and did not have the funding to continue exploring. The mystery of the island was kept alive by discoveries such as those made by Irwin Hamilton, who cleared out a shaft and claimed to have found rocks and wood that were foreign to the surrounding area. Confirming that something, possibly treasure, was further underneath, despite all of these previous failures, interest in the Money Pit did not fade away. This is because the mystery of the island was kept alive by discoveries such as these. Two brothers Lagina. It was obvious that these lads had been aspiring treasure hunters ever since they were little, and it was only a matter of time before some treasure hunting mystery beckoned and sent them on a wild quest. When Ricky was only 10 years old, he spotted a massive granite rock in his hometown of Kingsford and proceeded to investigate whether or not there was any treasure hidden behind it. Know the team. Rick and Marty Lagina are in good company with a team that not only has the knowledge, know-how, and experience to handle a treasure hunt of this size, but also has the faith and resolution that the island will, in their lifetime, yield and give up its mysteries. The brothers Rick and Marty are optimistic that they'll solve the island's mysteries and uncover its treasures. The other half of the Lagina team consists of Dan Blankenship, his son David, and Marty's college friend Craig Tester, who's an engineer and an expert in drilling. Dan knows Oak Island like the back of his hand, and David and Craig are Marty's partners in drilling. They're inseparable from one another, and the accomplishment of the goal since everyone possesses an entirely distinct set of skills. Parent and child. Dan Blankenship, a well-known treasure hunter from Nova Scotia, was frequently referred to as a living legend. He ran a prosperous contracting firm, but he gave it all up to search for treasure on Oak Island after reading an article about the island's mystery. Since that time, he's been putting his life on the line, shedding blood, sweat, and tears to solve the enigma surrounding the island. Dan Blankenship, son of Dan, is following in his father's footsteps by looking for treasure on Oak Island, and the two of them are assisting one another in this endeavor. Absurd conception. It's been a challenge for excavation crews, both in the past and in the present, to remove the water from the Money Pit to get access to the wealth. However, Craig and the rest of the Lagina team came up with a solution, which was to freeze the Money Pit. Digging will be less difficult if done in this manner. If you go with a different type of method, you're dealing with water all the time, said Craig. I think that's the case if you go with a different type of method. Working relationship. The brothers believed that to pursue their dream of finding the hidden treasure, they would need to purchase a stake in the island. And in 2006, they did exactly that by buying half of Oak Island Tours, which has a majority property interest in this tiny and enigmatic island that's south of Nova Scotia. More protracted. The recent discoveries made by Marty's team have led him to be cautious about jumping to conclusions. However, the evidence that's been uncovered so far indicates that significant events took place on the island much further back in time than was previously believed. As a result, Marty is cautiously optimistic that this could be a breakthrough in the search efforts, and as such, he's optimistic. The shaft. For the Lagina brothers, the fortunate discovery of the wood-lined shaft, which they believe was constructed in 1805 by those who first theorized about the money pit, laid the groundwork for a lot of other significant discoveries. The Lagina brothers have discovered approximately 600 historical artifacts since they began their Oak Island adventure. The bones. Marty, through his research, hypothesized that each of these was linked to the Knights Templar. The Middle Eastern thing supports the Knights Templar and things like that, Marty said. Another bone that was found, on the other hand, was determined to be of someone who had European ancestry. One of the more significant finds inside the money pit was a human bone that they speculated belonged to someone who had Middle Eastern ancestry. Master Locator. In the show, Gary Drayton is frequently regarded by the team as someone who possesses the enviable ability to find things that others can't, and he's put his skills to good use for the team. Before the 5th season of the show, The Curse of Oak Island concluded, the Laginas and Gary discovered something truly remarkable. Altering history. It was a small cross with a hole on its head, which they've dated to as far back as between 1200 and 1600. They also found a mysterious stone that had the Greek letters Eta and Theta on it, the design of which reminded Rick of a Templar prison at Dôme, France. The find wouldn't be so significant if it weren't for the other evidence. A link. The team felt that the artifacts made sense in the context of the theories that connect the island to the Knights Templar. It would change not only the history of a small island over the coast of Nova Scotia, but it would change the history of the world, the show says. If proof can be established that the members of the Knights Templar made their way to North America as many as 7 centuries ago, the show says. Phoenician people. On the other hand, historian Zena Halpern proposed a different theory about the cross's origin. According to Zena, the cross might be a depiction of the Phoenician goddess Tanit. This, it's speculated, could mean that the Templars venerated the Phoenician goddess of fertility and health, which could turn some of our knowledge of history, and especially our knowledge of Templars, on its head. Smuggling in goods. It was also suggested that the cross may have been used to smuggle gold. This was how they smuggled gold. The hypothesis is much more grounded in reality than the others. Jack Bagley stated that there was gold buried underneath this cross, but the cross itself was covered with lead. Therefore, they may still be roaming around Smith's Cove at this time. Stunning rhodolite garnet. The stone, which is thought to be between 400 and 500 years old, has found its way to the top of the brothers' shortlist of the most astounding discoveries they've discovered. It's a rhodolite garnet that has a color similar to raspberry, and some people believe that it provides evidence to support the hypothesis that the money pit is connected to Marie Antoinette. Rick Lagina, who discovered the rhodolite garnet, was quoted as saying, "So, I guess a pat on the back to all of us. We found treasure," in one of the interviews that he gave. Theories. The rhodolite garnet, on the other hand, could have originated from any number of locations, and the link to Marie Antoinette is just one of the hypotheses that people have entertained regarding the stone's origins. Because of its design, some people speculate that it's associated with a Masonic Royal Ark high priest. However, for the Lagina team, the only thing that's certain about the stone is that it could be as old as 500 years. Closer to treasure. It's of little concern to the Laginas whether or not the show will be renewed for a sixth season, in contrast to the fact that they feel they're getting ever so close to untangling the web that is the island's mysteries and unearthing the hidden treasure that's buried underneath. Maddie Blake, host of an after show dedicated to the efforts of Lagina's team, say that it's like a lightning rod has gone off and they continue to keep making all kinds of discoveries. Strange appearing stone. And for the Laginas, the discoveries just kept piling up. Another strange stone was discovered that had interesting carvings that more than indicated it was not just a garden variety stone. Craig Tester, the team's in-house drilling expert, noted that the carvings resembled Roman numerals. At this point, if there's one thing the team is all in agreement about, it's that anything found near the money pit must be thoroughly investigated. And later on, they'd find out something shady about the money pit. Relationship with Vikings. It was another piece of evidence that confirms previously well-documented theories about a Viking connection to Oak Island. After bringing the stone to their lab to run the relevant tests and subjecting the item to further investigation, they have hypothesized that, so far, the evidence suggests an early Viking presence on Oak Island. Weird objects. During their exploration work in and around Smith's Cove, the team came across what appeared to be tubular objects that seemed unnatural to the environment, suggesting that it was man-made. They were able to confirm this by consulting with an esteemed archaeologist named Laird Niven, who described the objects as tube plates. Their discoveries were not limited to strange stones and parchments. Secret vault. The team also discovered an eerie-appearing structure underneath it that was tilted in a way that suggested it might have been man-made. This discovery perplexed the team, and they have collectively come to the idea that it might be the elusive Chapel Vault, which is believed to contain the Oak Island treasures. However, only time will tell if this theory is accurate. An abundance of wealth. The brothers have made a killing from the popular TV show that documents their Oak Island treasure hunt. The Laginas now own part of the island and have been a cash cow for the History Channel because of the public's interest in their lifelong dream. It should come as no surprise that the Laginas are now worth millions of dollars, with Rick's worth being in the region of $2 million and his brother's worth being in the vicinity of $1 million. The brothers Lagina. The treasure search expedition of Triton Alliance in Oak Island was highlighted in a story that was published in Reader's Digest in 1965. This is the same article that piqued the curiosity of Rick Lagina when he was just 11 years old. When the brothers found out that a portion of Oak Island was available for purchase at a price of approximately $7 million in 2005, they recognized the possibility of making a financial investment there. They bought a share in the company that is now known as Oak Island Tours Incorporated, equal to 50%. They were in their 50s, but the resolve they had as children to locate the treasure of which they had fantasized remained with them. From scratch. The Lagina brothers decided to begin their exploration of Oak Island with a clean slate by making use of some modern technologies that had been unavailable to past explorers. Rick and Marty were really intent on getting to work immediately and conducting further research on the island. The brothers were able to search not only the legendary money pit, but also other portions of the island that had not yet been explored because to the cutting-edge technology that was at their disposal. Because the boys were equipped with the technological resources necessary to devise effective solutions, the boys were no longer hindered by the flooding of the pit. Their efforts, much to their astonishment, uncovered secrets and allies that were very different from what they had anticipated finding. Competent and well-prepared. The Lagina brothers had a burning urge to investigate the Oak Island mystery from an early age. Nonetheless, they waited a long time before beginning their treasure hunt. And with years of experience and knowledge on their side, they arrived well prepared. Marty had a great deal of expertise in the field of gas wells and excavating, and he passed on to his brother Rick both his knowledge and his talents in these areas. Because Marty had worked at a variety of gas wells, he had the opportunity to interact with a wide range of professionals in the engineering field. He was able to take use of these relationships by recruiting people he knew to act as professional counselors for him. Initial discovery. One of the first things that the brothers did for their show was to drain a marsh so they could look more thoroughly than any other explorer who had come before them. It turned out that the swamp led them to their first treasure, which was a copper coin with a Spanish eagle on it and a date from the 17th century. This offered evidence that individuals from Spain had previously traveled to the island. The key pieces of evidence that were discovered led to the formation of a variety of hypotheses and speculations. One of these hypotheses proposes that King Solomon was the owner of the treasure that was concealed. Added discoveries. The first 2 seasons of the show were quite popular, but it wasn't until the end of the 3rd season that the Lagina brothers made the discoveries that were the most exciting to them. Rick and Marty were eventually successful in finding the island's most valuable treasures with the assistance of a team of specialists who guided them through sonar readings and supported them in draining the borehole 10X. They discovered a sword from Roman times, as well as a carving from Portugal. When they found evidence that the Aztecs had visited the island in the past, things started to get more interesting for everyone involved. That's really cool, isn't it? A treasure hunt. Rick, who was in his 50s at the time, saw his search for the wealth on Oak Island as an essential and meaningful continuation of a treasured childhood dream. "There's a story waiting to be told here," the man said. "Perhaps a treasure, but at the very least it's an absolutely amazing tale from a very long time ago." Rick remarked that it seemed as though every day we were turning another page in an excellent novel. In light of their treasure quest, he made the following observation. "To me, life itself is a treasure hunt. We're all on one, each in our own unique way, and it just so happens that we're on a real one right now." Map of France. In the 3rd episode of the show, the Lagina brothers were presented with a French map that dated back to the year 1647 as a present. In addition to being rendered in French, the map of Oak Island also included a number of interesting facts hidden within its outlines. On the map, it was noted that there was an anchor, a valve, and a hatch that may provide assistance to explorers as they search for the treasure on the island. The map also included cryptic clues that suggested the rumored riches may have originated in Africa. These symbols and clues proved to be of great use to the Lagina brothers, providing them with important information that previous explorers have been lacking. Sample from the RMS Titanic. It may be hard to believe, but the mystery of Oak Island is even linked to the tragic event that occurred aboard the Titanic. The excavation of Oak Island was rumored to have been funded in a significant part by Vincent Astor, who is thought to have provided an enormous sum of money. It's reported that he had a strong conviction that an enormous treasure truly does exist on the island, and it was this conviction that motivated him to commit a tremendous sum of money to the search for the treasure. Astor had even held out hope that he'd be able to find the Ark of the Covenant. The prosperous businessman had received his riches as an inheritance from his well-known father, John Jacob Astor IV, who had perished in the sinking of the Titanic. Fall of Barry. A man by the name of Barry Fell, who was among the many knowledgeable and astute explorers who attempted to solve the enigma of Oak Island, was given a terrible name in light of the tragic outcomes that befell many of the explorers who ventured to the island. Fell was a zoologist by training and an archaeologist at Harvard. He hypothesized that the sculptures found on Oak Island were made by Coptic Christians from North Africa, who may have traveled to the area at some point in the distant past. Oak Island is located in Nova Scotia. Helping to save lives. The show, The Curse of Oak Island on the History Channel, was more than just pure entertainment. It actually made a significant impact on the life of at least one of its followers. When a lifelong viewer found out that the show had, in the unlikeliest of circumstances, rescued his home, he was overjoyed. The native Texan placed an order for an aqua dam, which was an exact replica of the one that was utilized on the show. In order to protect his property from the severe effects of the flood that was caused by Hurricane Harvey. Because his home was the only one on the block that was spared from the fire, it seems likely that he was the lone Oak Island enthusiast in the neighborhood. Waste of time. Joy Steele is a woman who has a theory about how the mystery can be solved. She asserts that in addition to the well-known money pit, there are more pits that might be discovered in that area. She claimed that these pits were nothing more than enormous tar storage vessels that had been dug by the British Army to assist in the construction of maintenance of their ships. She stated that the British Army dug these pits in order to lend credence to the hypothesis. Joy described a number of shipbuilding sites in North Carolina that, architecturally speaking, are reminiscent of the Oak Island configuration and were historically used as tar pits. Is it possible that the solution is actually nothing more than pitch? We're going to have new explorers try to find the solution while we wait for their findings.